This is not a very attractive web page yet. Um, a common feature of web pages is some sort of a navigation bar. So we're going to take a little like detour from doing all this like server side stuff, and we're going to make a little bit of a nav bar, which will be great. Um, Let me commit my changes first because I forgot to do that. Write data to MongoDB via Mongoose. All right. So let's make our page look better. Um, we're gonna actually, yeah, let's actually make like a nice navigation bar. Um, that can have like our image and a create entry link like all in the top nav bar. So we're going to actually change our index HTML by editing index.ejs. Um, and we're going to actually use a div element instead. So inside of main still, we're going to change things up a bit here. I'm going to add a div and I'm going to assign a class of index top bar. And the reason for this is then I can refer to this class inside of our CSS file to style it appropriately. I do want to have the logo, so I'm going to cut and paste the image into here. And I'm going to get rid of the width and the height because we can deal with that in the cascading style sheet. So inside of our div of class index top bar, we have the same image as before, just with the source and alt attributes. We don't need width and height anymore because we can do that through the style sheet. I still want my header, so I'm going to cut and paste this so we can have the header there as well. And then we're going to do the create entry slightly different. We're going to make it a link. So I'm going to do an A tag, which is an anchor tag. And I'm going to assign the href property to slash create entry, which is like what we had like in our JavaScript code before. And I'm going to use another property we haven't seen before, which is called role. And I'm going to assign this a role of a button. And that will determine like how we style this link. And I'll call it create entry. And then I'm going to get rid of the button that we used to have. Okay. So this is we're going to take advantage of some more sophisticated CSS stuff so that we can have a more modern navigation bar. Yeah. Um, the role is going to suffice. That's all we need. This will actually this will simplify some other code as well, which is nice. But all we need is the role and along with like the link. So normally if you did an ahref, it would just be text. It'd be like a hyperlink text, right? Like blue and underline, like we're used to seeing on web pages. But by assigning it the role and putting it within this div, we're going to style it in a more modern way. And it'll look like a button, even if it's not a button element. All right, so here's our refactoring of our top bar navigation that we want on the index page. So now we actually need to do the styling that goes with this. So if we go up to under assets and CSS, we're going to go to our style sheet, which is styles.css. Pico is another style sheet that is a common framework that's relatively simple, but adds some modern styling. And we'll use some of those elements as well. But we're going to put our thing in here. I've already added some selectors here for authentication, which we'll get to later. So let's just ignore that for now. And let's just add a selector for the class index top bar. So I start with a dot here because I'm selecting not based on an element, but I'm selecting based on just the class. So there's no element dot index top bar. I'm just doing dot index top bar. I could do div dot index top bar, I guess, but often I don't know why we don't. But I see this more often. That's the best answer I've got, unfortunately. We're going to use Flexbox, which we studied a little bit, but not a lot. So we're going to use a flex layout, and our flex direction is going to be row, because we're going to orient. It's a horizontal navigation bar, and our flex wrap is going to be no wrap. We want it all on one line in our navigation bar. We're going to do justify content and space between. It's going to nicely space out the elements in our navigation bar. And then finally, we're going to do align items center. And that will like center everything vertically in our navigation bar. So that will look nice. We're going to add some additional selectors. So we're going to say dot index top bar, but then we're going to do image. What this selector means is for image elements inside the index top bar div, we're going to add some extra rules. We're going to specify flex shrink, and we're going to set that to 0. And then we're going to actually specify the width and the height that before we had in our EJS file. Now we're going to put it in here instead. This gives us more flexibility. We could actually change the size of the navigation bars, change the size of the image. We could be responsive for mobile, tablet, desktop. We can do a lot of different things. So it gives us some flexibility to put the width and the height in the CSS file rather than in the EJS file. And then finally, we are going to do index top bar.h1. I don't want to change the font size. I want to change margin right. We're going to add auto to add a little bit of spacing to the right of our header, so our navigation bar elements don't get all crammed together. Here's the cool thing. Because now we've defined this index top bar, and we've done that roll thing with the button, and we've made it a link rather than a button, we don't need to write JavaScript code to add a listener to the button to navigate to the different page. It's a link, right? HTML links are good at navigating to different pages. That's what we use them for all the time. So we can actually delete some code, which is wonderful. We can go into assets.js, index.js, and all of this that we wrote, we don't need it anymore, because we don't need to write JavaScript code to listen to a click on a button to set the window location to create entry. We can delete all that because this is literally an HTML anchor which links to the create entry page. Okay, so it's simple. We get rid of client-side JavaScript, which is always nice. All right, let's refresh and see what it looks like. Close this out for now. Hey, that's not so bad, right? We've got our icon here, Habits of Mind Journal. We have a nice create entry button on the far right. This page still needs some work for sure. There's time for that, or there's the summative lab. But this definitely looks better than what we had before. And this button still works. That's great. So now we have a more modern navigation bar than we had before. All right.